safe to start. Okay, so pleasant good afternoon to everyone. Good morning to our colleagues and participants who based in Europe or other countries. And we'd like to welcome you to this Tuesday's. Would you turn off your mics, please? Okay, thank you very much. Yeah, we'd like to welcome you to this webinar series on technology-driven insurance, attitudes, behaviors, and motivations of customers in the Philippines and Indonesia. And today's webinar is actually the 28th episode under the Tuesdays with MEFIN webinar initiative. And for today, we're focusing on Series 1, which is on the results of the Philippine study. And we have lined up 3 presenters for you who will be sharing you the experiences that they had, not only with the main topic of mobile insurance, but also on health services, in particular telemedicine. So to start officially, I'd like to call on our program director, Dr. Volker Steigerwald, to officially welcome everybody and deliver the opening remarks. Volker, please.
Yes, good afternoon to everybody. Thank you, Ronnie. A pleasant day to all participants. On behalf of RFPI Asia 3 and the MEFIN network, allow me to welcome you to this webinar series on technology-driven insurance, attitudes, behaviors, and motivations of customers in the Philippines and Indonesia. As Ronnie was mentioning, today's webinar is already the 28th in our Tuesday with MEFIN webinar initiative, and we shall focus on the findings of the study in the Philippines done by the public-private partnership project between GIZ, Allianz Insurance, and BIMA, called Developing Risk Management Approaches for Climate and Health Risks. The purpose of this study was to understand the attitudes, motivations, and behaviors of the low-income underserved sectors in order to identify the challenges of acquisition, retention, expansion of mobile insurances, products, and health services. It covered quite a number of countries, including the Philippines and Indonesia, and we were fortunate that our colleagues from the sector and program Financial Systems Development and the Global Initiative for Access to Insurance in GIZ Germany agreed to collaborate with us in order to share with you the results of this study. We believe that the information and insights that we'll present today will be very interesting and helpful to all of you, considering the current pandemic situation and how technology could play a role in making insurance still relevant, particularly for the low income sector. In addition, we also added a session on the challenges and issues faced by the telemedicine sector in the Philippines based on the experiences in RFPI's DPP project on telemedicine. While insurance and telemedicine, of course, are two different sectors, both of them actually face similar challenges, and today's presentation on telemedicine will be highly linked to the results of the GIZ study. We already at this point would like to thank our presenters for sharing their valuable time with us. Ms. Asis Rodriguez, who leads in this work stream in the GIZ Allianz BIMA DPP. Ms. Zam Superabel of Curiosity Design Research, who conducted the study in the Philippines. And Dr. Eileen P. Binua Cruz, Medical Director of CHMF. By the way, maybe we can also inform you already that the presentations and deliberations on the study findings for Indonesia on the same topic will take place on the 7th of September, also here. And we hope that you will find also the time to participate in another interesting Tuesday with MEFIN webinar. The invitations have already sent out, and we will continue to inform you about the upcoming event. With this, I wish you all a very productive and interesting webinar. Thank you, and back to Ronnie.
Thank you very much, Volker, for your opening remarks. Slide, please, Shine. Okay, so before we go into the meat of the webinar itself, just allow us to give you some short guidelines to ensure the smooth and effective implementation of the webinar. Well, one, we'd appreciate it if you turn off your microphones and webcams in order to conserve internet bandwidth, okay, and allow for an uninterrupted webinar. Secondly, if you have questions, we'd appreciate it also if you post them in the chat feature of this platform. We will pick them up and then we will ask them, of course, during the question and answer session. The slides of this webinar will be shared after its conduct via email and, of course, with the MEFIN Facebook group. Okay, so basically, those are just our simple guidelines to ensure, well, smooth webinar for today. Now, Shine, could you change the slide, please? Okay, so we go briefly into the agenda. And we just finished the welcome remarks and the webinar guidance. Okay. At 3:05, we start with the first topic, which is the mobile delivered insurance in the Philippines. The introduction will be delivered by our colleague, Ms. Asis Rodriguez Ramirez, an advisor from the Sector Program, Financial Systems Development and Global Initiative for Access to Insurance of GIZ in Germany. For the key insights, the behavioral types, and the recommendations of the study itself, it will be done by Ms. Glyza May Superable, or as she would prefer to be called, ZAM, who was mentioned by Volker, a senior design researcher at Curiosity Design Research, the ones that conducted this actual study for the Philippines. After that, we will have at 3:25 the portion on telemedicine, which will deal on the practical experiences they have, including the challenges and issues, particularly for accessing the low-income sector, the trust in the use of technology, and internet connectivity. And this will be presented by Dr. Eileen Binuya Cruz, the medical director of 1CHMF. At 3:40 until 4 o'clock, we'll be having an open forum where the questions that you sent via chat will be asked, and you could also ask questions directly should we have time for more questions. And at 4 o'clock, we will have a short webinar evaluation via Menti, and then a wrap-up of the event. Okay, so it's a very simple agenda. We don't want to keep you waiting. Next slide, Shine, please. And just to show you our presenters for today, actually, this is a very lucky group as we have three lovely ladies whom I already mentioned earlier, who will act as the presenters for the topics in this webinar. Okay, so there they are. I think you've seen also their faces and their credentials when we were promoting the webinar. Okay, so just to refresh you. Next slide, Shine. So we now go into the session on mobile delivered insurance in the Philippines, the key insights, behavioral types, and recommendations. And as an introduction, I'd like to call first on Ms. Asis to give a background regarding this one. So Asis, please, the floor is yours.
Thank you, Ronnie. I hope you can hear me now.
You're loud and clear, Asis.
Yeah, thank you. So good morning from Germany and good afternoon to the Philippines. As mentioned, my name is Asis Rodriguez and I'm an advisor at the public-private partnership between the GIZ Alliance and VIMA. So one of the partnership goals was to gain insights to further develop mobile insurance and value-added services like telemedicine. And to ensure that our project makes these services more relevant, our approach was always to put the customer at the center. For this reason, we conducted customer research in different countries, namely in the Philippines, in Indonesia, and in Ghana. And today we will have this deep dive into the research we conducted in the Philippines with the agency Curiosity, who was kind enough to take the time to be here with us. So the project gained valuable insights about the mobile insurance customers, how they use these services and how they experience it, what's their experience using these services, as well as to discover opportunities and how to improve the offer. So without further ado, I'll just, Sam, the floor is yours.
Hi, thank you, Asis. Are you hearing me clearly?
Yeah.
Okay. Thank you for that very much for that introduction. I would like to actually see the slides of curiosity as we begin this sharing. No. Next slide, please. Shine. So I think we've already discussed the report outline, so I'll skip totally on this and move to who our consumers are. Next slide, please. Okay, so actually we talked to several participants in this study. We've talked mostly, some of them are non-insured individuals to really understand what stops them from getting an insurance. And then we also talked to low-cost insurance holders right now in the Philippines to also get to learn from their journey. So most of these insurance holders actually got their insurance both through digital and non-digital means. Next slide, please. Okay, let's begin with the key findings on persona. Next slide. So actually, in this study, we've identified 4 different types of persona. Yes?
Sorry.
I'm sorry. I think the line is a bit choppy. Hello?
Go ahead, Sam. I think there was a problem with the mic. Yep.
Just go ahead.
Okay. So for this, we identified 4 types of persona, and each of them actually differ based on key variables. These variables are the following. Next slide, please. Okay, so they differ in terms of based on what their current financial goals are, how do they earn money, how close or far are they from health risks, how do they manage their health in the event of sickness, and what is their current understanding of insurance. We'll go through each persona in the succeeding slides. Can you next slide, please, Shine? Okay, let's begin with understanding the non-insured. We have 2 types of personas under here, and noticeably they are similar in the sense that the people we talk to tend to be small-scale business owners. Their income varies day per day, and because of that, whenever they have money, they tend to maximize it for their present needs. Some of them would say, "Oh, I'd rather use it for the inventory of my business." However, there are key differences, no? There are key differences in how in their attitude towards insurance because of other factors. The rejecter is someone who would say, "No, I don't really need an insurance." And this is because first and foremost, they believe that they are far from health risk. And when they feel like when they get sick, I can resort to more available and easily accessible alternative medicines. At the same time, they have poor perceptions of insurance. They often remember moments of insurance bankruptcy in the past. That's their first thing that comes to mind. The sideliner is someone more open to insurance but still hesitates to do so, to get one. Their openness appears because first and foremost, they feel like they're closer to health risk. They or their relatives may have availed medical services in the past, making them more health conscious. They also primarily, they know also that it is expensive to get medical services. So that is why they are open. But they hesitate from getting one because first and foremost, the insurance they know of are quite expensive. They tell, oh, that's only for the employed, we can't handle that. Or some of them also believe that the products available are irrelevant. So they mostly talk about burial assistance, which is a common insurance here in the Philippines, which is also offered by cooperatives that may be in their area. Next slide, please. On the other hand, the non-insured, as you can see their profiles, they tend to have a lot of similarities, except for their financial goals. The security seeker is someone who wants to maintain their current financial security, whereas the investor is someone who intends to grow their money for the future. They have similarities in the sense that they are all employed with fixed monthly income, and knowing how much money they receive month per month enables them to plan ahead. Similar to the sideliner, they also tend to be more health conscious. And some of them not really know how expensive it is to avail medical care. Some have contributed to relatives' medical bills, which is a common practice here in the Philippines. These two insured individuals' profiles also have positive perceptions about insurance because they tend to know more about it, to get to know about it at their workplace. Their co-workers may be talking about it, or it could also be possible that their HR department will maybe organizing talks about insurance that causes them to purchase it. Next slide, please. I guess now that we know who our consumers are, let's head on to their insurance purchase journey. Generally, this is the purchase journey people go through when buying an insurance. But of course, journeys can be different. No? Some customers may skip some journeys, or the sequence may vary for each individual. But generally, the first step is assessing, do I need an insurance and do I have the capacity to pay for it? In the second and third stage, that is where they look around them, see their options, and select what are the options that suits my needs and my budget. At the third stage, that is when they prepare the documents needed for insurance and also plan their payment process. How do I budget my money right now so I can pay for it? The last stage is knowing how to get the insurance when they need it. Next slide, please. So we've actually identified opportunities and challenges throughout this journey that can be useful for us to improve our processes. No, what is happening on the ground for the insurance holders right now? So first and foremost, in the first step, we see that it's really the non-insured who struggles to get past the first step. They lack the tools to conduct a needs and readiness assessment. No, what are their financial risks, medical risks? They don't have the tools for that. And secondly, they also struggle with misconceptions towards insurance that makes it difficult for them to see its value. In the second and third stage, one opportunity that we're seeing because of the pandemic is that people tend to be more online now. So online platforms can be viable tools for us to reach out to them. And this is particularly true in the Philippines, maybe in urban areas, because we have higher smartphone penetration, and recently there's also improved data packages. So this is something that consumers are more open to. During this stage, the challenge, the second and third stage, the additional challenge is really assessing which products would suit my budget and needs. So sometimes what happens, because there's limited products available to them, they get whatever insurance is first introduced to them without really assessing the product benefits. During these first three stages, it's also good to note how collectivist Filipino culture can be, such that family and friends are really critical touch points. They are the ones they ask for recommendations, and even for hesitant individuals, if you onboard the family and friends, they tend to be more open to getting an insurance. In the fourth stage, the purchase and continuous payment, what we're seeing is that for individuals who availed insurance non-digitally, so face-to-face, it's also a struggle to do that right now because they have to procure several documents, they have to line up at the insurance agency, which takes a lot of effort and time. During continuous payment, it's also worth noting, to note that some individuals begin to cancel their payments because consumer behavior is very goal-directed. If they don't see that they're using the insurance or they're not claiming anything from it, then they see it as a waste of money. During our fifth stage, the claiming stage, this is where the digital people who avail digital insurance are more find it challenging, find more challenging in the sense that when they have paid for insurance over a long period of time and they only get to talk to individuals, they only get informed via text messages, all interactions are purely online, then they begin to question, is this insurance legit? Am I not being scammed? So there is this sense of hesitancy that creeps up into these consumers, and then they begin canceling the insurance plan if it's purely through digital means. So that is one of the challenges that we're noting. Next slide, please. Now that we have a better understanding of who our customers are and what is their purchase journey, I would like to focus now on how can we apply these learnings when we try to target low-income segments. Okay, so these recommendations are really based on the factors that influences an individual's intent to purchase an insurance. So we have psychological, economic, sociocultural, and we'll move on to the succeeding factors later on. Of course, these recommendations are just, applying these recommendations would depend on the capacity of your organizations, but these are some of the suggestions you may consider. So first and foremost, what we have to provide to our potential customers is really tools and resources to help them with assessment, to help them recognize what are their vulnerabilities, medical or financial. So once they acknowledge that, then we also have to provide them with products that matches with their needs. Second, because customer behavior is goal-directed, and so it is important that we establish goals and provide rewards. And this is particularly true if your insurance is continuously paid. So you have to make them feel that with every payment they do, they're getting something or gaining something from that. And if you consider providing rewards for continuous payments, some of them mention that they would appreciate more practical rewards, something that they can use for their day-to-day lives. And that could appear as discounts, maybe for bills payment, maybe for groceries or medicines, and even some mention having the opportunity to loan from the insurance company in the same way that SSS government insurance do. In the economic factors, we see how financial context really differs per individual. So they would really appreciate flexibility. We provide that by providing them with options as to what benefits may be included in their packages, or maybe options in payment terms, whether that be quarterly, yearly, monthly. Because lower segments have fewer opportunities to learn about insurance, we really have to drive customer education, and invest in that. And we can tap these segments by already reaching out to them in their communities. We can talk to church groups, barangay units, or other grassroots organizations that may have that can be a gateway to these communities. Next, because Filipinos are family-oriented, it's good to consider including family coverage in the plans and helping and maybe enabling individuals not to select which of their family members would they like to include. as we can see that family and friends are critical influencers throughout the journey, it's good to make use of that bandwagon effect by actually exploring group bundles or using referral systems. It's one way for the individual it's one way for us to gain the trust of individual if they know that somebody from their network already availed it. Next, we've noticed that there are still people who really resort to alternative medicine. And if you want to tap these people, then it may be one, amplifying the communications of other products such as life or accident insurance, or it could be possible to make them feel that it's easier to access medical services through other platforms such as telemedicine. Next slide, please. We've noticed during this pandemic that a lot of people are really online, particularly on Facebook, and we can actually use that to promote and inform them about our products. Alternatively, one thing that we can also do is actually partner with existing fintech apps available here in the Philippines. You have mobile wallets such as GCash or shopping apps such as Lazada or Shopee, to make it easier for these individuals to pay and purchase insurance. So actually, some of our members bought insurance from these websites. While we can do everything digitally, human interaction is strongly valued. So to make them feel that the product is legitimate, it would be good to have opportunities to talk to agents when they have questions, or even just having a physical contract that they can hold on to instead of a text message or text confirmation is already appreciated. Because of the pandemic as well, we've noticed that people tend to be more health conscious. That is why products geared towards health insurance or medical related services such as telemedicine is something that they're more open to. Particularly recently, that some mentioned that it's really difficult to get appointments from doctors. In terms of legal, we've noticed that we can consider partnerships with employing companies if we also want to target low-income employed individuals. This would make it easier for them to purchase the product because, first and foremost, the company may help with the documents, may help with organizing talks, that could help inform these individuals about insurance. In the Philippines, for the last two bullets, in the Philippines, we have government insurance, and some of the individuals we talk to would resort to buying that instead of private insurance. So if that is the case, we may offer our products as a potential add-on, as an added security to them. And we can also amplify what is it that they can avail with private insurances that they cannot get with government insurances. And maybe for some, that could be the easier processing, that documents are not that the documents can be minimal, that they don't have to line up for long hours, and the payment is also easier. So next slide, please. So I'll end this. I'll end this short sharing with description of who do we target given the different personas we've encountered. And for us, from the curiosity, it's really the sideliner who is ripe, who is our lowest hanging fruit when it comes to potential customers. These are individuals who are already aware of their need for insurance. It's a matter of correcting their misconceptions to increase its value. Actually, next slide, please. That's it from curiosity, and I hope you've learned a lot from that short while. I'll be looking forward to your questions later at the end of the forum.
Okay, thank you very much, Zam, and you'll be still there, of course, for the question and answer portion. So, okay, at this point, Shine, could you please change the slide? We now move into the session on telemedicine, where the challenges and issues drawn from our DPP project on telemedicine will be shared to you. particularly for accessing the low-income sector, trust and use of technology, and internet connectivity. And for this, I'd like to call on Dr. Eileen to give her presentation. Dr. Eileen, please.
Hello, can you hear me?
Yes, you're loud, clear, Doctora.
So good
We
afternoon.
can hear you.
All right. Good afternoon. This afternoon, I was tasked to talk about our experiences in telemedicine, the challenges and issues. Next slide, please. So before I give a background on how we came about the idea of putting up a telemedicine arm for our HMO, first, let me make a brief introduction of CHMF, or known as Cooperative Health Management Federation, also known as One Coop Health. We are the first cooperative HMO in the Philippines that was established in July 8, 2014. It was founded by 13 leading cooperatives, federations, and organizations. To date, we have a total of 54,000 members nationwide. So as the COVID-19 pandemic hit the country, the healthcare sector of every nation were put on a challenge that no one had imagined. So as a federation committed to continually provide healthcare assistance to our members, we devised a way to extend our reach so that our members will continually have access to healthcare, despite the multiple challenges brought about by the pandemic. Telemedicine has been in our country. However, it was not universally accepted, and doctors have varied views on its implementation. In this situation, we need to address the problem, adjust the situations, and adapt to changes. Thus, telemedicine slowly eases its way to the healthcare system. CHMF was fortunate to have partnered with GIC in this project, and with that, we are very grateful. So to the officers of GIC, to Mr. Dante Portela, to everyone, in behalf of CHMF, we extend our warmest gratitude. The partnership with GIC commenced last October 15 of 2020, and we aim to develop an open source application for COVID-19 related telemedicine services for CHMF that will be made available also to the other sectors. Next slide, please. Access to primary healthcare remains to be a challenge in rural and remote areas of the country. PhilHealth covers around 93% of the population, but still, Filipinos spend a good amount of money in healthcare. As technology starts to bridge the gap in healthcare, we now see the value of telemedicine in light of the recent health crisis. In the background of most healthcare professionals trying to decrease their exposure, telemedicine has now become a vital tool in this pandemic. So what is telemedicine? So American Telemedicine Association defined it as medical care delivered through the use of telecommunications technology. The National Telehealth Center in the Philippines has been spearheading telemedicine since 2007. But it was not until the COVID-19 pandemic that it gained prominence. Next slide, please. We have identified the following as benefits in having a telemedicine service. Many patients prefer the flexibility and practicality of having real-time healthcare. First is convenience. Since it can easily be accessed through your smartphone, your computers, your laptop, there is also a resulting benefit of less time away from work or school. Another is comfort, because if you can access it at the comfort of your own home, with the added benefit of no waiting time. Third, easy access to healthcare, easy access to specialists, and of course, less exposure to infectious diseases. Next slide, please. Okay. We have exerted a great amount of effort in accessing the low-income sector. CHMF conducted various awareness campaigns across the country, Luzon, Visayas, and Mindanao, to disseminate the importance of the telemedicine service. We personally visit our member cooperatives face-to-face in their respective offices. This is very true in the National Capital Region, in the NCR, and also in our Davao office. Campaign is through campaign is through the use of social media and other communication tools. We assure them that the telemedicine service are available, not for a sum of money or a low-cost price, but it is for free through the partnership with GIC and a local telemed provider while we are developing the in-house platform. We also conduct a series of meetings via Zoom and other similar platforms. Next slide, please. Okay, we have identified different challenges. Next slide, please. All right. First challenge is the platform. We are developing an open source telemedicine platform which will be available to use by the other sectors. But in order to provide telemedicine service promptly, we have contracted the #1 telemedicine provider in the Philippines, which is Consulta MD. At the moment, like any project, we are still encountering difficulties in its development. I think everyone would agree that conducts of meetings, orientations, and the like are quite challenging, since majority, if not all of those, are done via Zoom or similar platforms nowadays, especially when it comes to internet connectivity, like what's my problem now. But we assure that these problems are being addressed properly and accordingly. Next slide, please. So another is culture with patient member adoption and patient lack of technical skills. Information dissemination poses quite a challenge, especially during the pandemic, where face-to-face contact is restricted. In our setting here in the Philippines, there are many dialects, which results to communication barriers. And also, just like any new technology being introduced in the market, the entry of telemedicine presents an issue in terms of acceptance. Not all of our members owns a smartphone or a computer. Some of our senior citizen members find it difficulty in accessing and would rely on their younger relatives when it comes to technology. Not all have access to high-speed internet, which is important, especially with video calls, where the quality of the image and even the audio may be affected. Patients can only use telemedicine services if they are aware that they exist. We, as the providers, need to use content marketing, social media, and email newsletters to reach them and get the word out. Public awareness, as we all know, is the key to all this dilemma. In most cases, patients do not understand how to use telemedicine services. This can be considered an obstacle to utilization and accessibility. So to fully grasp the extent of which this affects our patients, physicians and us can survey patients before launching a telehealth services. This will allow them to find out which devices patients are most comfortable when accessing telemedicine service. Of course, staff training should also be taken into consideration so that they can help patients who need assistance. Next slide, please. Okay, so another is technology. We have connectivity issues in the country. Of course, communication device with members. The Philippines is known as the social media capital of the world. We are spending around 4 to 12 hours online. But we have slow internet speed and also quite expensive. So there are several aspects, and I wanted just to tell you why. Why is it that our internet connection in the country is that slow? Well, there's the telecom infrastructure. So we have at least 17 to 20,000 cell towers, lower than our neighboring countries. So per cell tower, it is advisable that only 100 to 200 households connect to a single cell tower. But in our country, 4,000 households connect to one cell tower. So according to experts, we need around 50,000 more cell tower to be at par with other countries for a faster internet connection. Now there's topography. You know that the Philippines has 7,641 islands, which make it hard to cover the whole country land-wise. Third is the return on investment, or ROI. Telecommunication company will think twice in investing on a cell tower, especially in far-flung provinces. According to some of the people that I've asked, a single cell tower costs about 15 million pesos. So that's a concern of the ROI. Then fourth, appropriate legislation. It takes about 8 months to completely furnish 25 permits and documents before, but due to the Anti-Red Tape Act and the RA number 11032, or also known as the Ease of Doing Business law, it is now possible to accomplish all this in about a month. We have also competition. There's less competition. There are only two big players in the country, namely PLDT and Globe Telecommunications, quite expensive. Another is government support. We need a good plan from the government with regards to telecom structure. And I just learned this yesterday that aside from this that I've mentioned, we don't own our own satellite. We rent from our neighboring countries for our internet, for the satellite. So the telecommunication company also pushes for 5G. The limitation in this case that this is only accessible using mobile data, which makes it more not cost effective, especially in a third world country like the Philippines. Next slide, please. Okay, one of the challenges, data privacy. So although telemedicine is convenient, it doesn't come without security and privacy concerns. Healthcare providers also need to make sure that they are communicating with their patients using a secure connection. So before storing any digital healthcare information, you must secure a consent from each of the patients or for each of our clients in compliance with the Data Privacy Act of 2012. Accomplishing the consent form is in itself, it poses difficulty for our patients since most of them are not tech savvy, and some we need to go to each of the cooperatives and have it manually administered. Next slide, please. So after touching on the challenges presented on the side of the consumers and technology provider, we now shift our attention to the ones who will actually provide the healthcare services, our doctors, our physicians. So some of the concerns are clinicians' reluctance. There are some doctors who are unwilling to adopt telemedicine, but this is more true in the earlier part of the pandemic, especially those that think that a face-to-face consultation is necessary in their practice. Some are worried about the potential for medical errors when using these tools. For example, just for an example, a chief complaint of a lower abdominal pain, a surgeon would need to do proper physical examination to determine if it's surgical or not. We cannot just tell patients to do the medical exams and maneuvers to arrive at a diagnosis. But I personally think that we can still sense the telltale signs of a consult that would warrant a face-to-face consultation. So that must be communicated to our doctors during trainings and seminars about telemedicine. There are also concerns with regards to the legalities, the medical malpractice suits. When I had my telemedicine short course in Harvard, the worst outcome in telemedicine practice is actually death. So at present, there is no malpractice suit involving telemedicine in our country, and hopefully there will be none. Not because nobody is filing a case, but since nothing is happening. I think this is a valid concern on the side of the clinician, but we can work around it by making the limitations clear to the patient prior to the teleconsultation proper. Connectivity. Connectivity is a challenge. Internet speed fluctuates. This can affect the teleconsultation and the quality of the video or the images that may directly affect the provision of a good quality care. Another is time. Some clinicians are apprehensive of how they would fit telemedicine in their current workflow. This is especially true with specialists who are always on the run and have lots of patients in their clinics. It's hard to fit telemedicine practice in this scenario. In response to this issue, we will have dedicated clinicians working on a regular schedule. So training. Doctors do not have proper training in conducting telemedicine. It was not until the second half of the pandemic that lectures and seminars regarding it were conducted. Honestly, I was one of the reluctant doctors when it comes to telemedicine. But then again, I realized something I have believed in for so many years, that the only permanent thing in the world is change. We need to adjust to the challenges in front of us, to learn, train, and have an open mind. Adapt to the changes to better serve our patient and embrace the changes that will improve the health situations in the country. Our federation, together with GIC, will work hard to ensure that the telemedicine service will provide access to safe and quality healthcare to our members. I think that's my last slide. Thank you all for listening.
Okay, thank you very much, Dr. Eileen, for the interesting presentation. Okay, so now we go straight into the question and answer, or what we call the open forum. And so far, let's see if we have any questions from the chat. We have one from my colleague, Dante Portula. He wrote, thanks, Doc Eileen, for such an elaborate presentation and for providing facts and figures. My question is, where do you see the role of the Department of Health and the, well, RHUs in further promoting telemedicine in the country, especially to the low-income sector? Dr. Eileen, this is your question.
Hi, good afternoon. I think DOH plays a major role in for the implementation of telemedicine in the country. DOH is a regulating body, and I think they are already starting their telemedicine services. What DOH wanted is that this telemedicine services would be available for the
What happened to the connection?
Yes, Dr. Eileen, I think we lost her. One of the problems you mentioned was connectivity, and I think it affected us. Anyway, we'll go back to Dr. Eileen because we're seeing another set of questions here. But the question again is for Dr. Eileen. So let's see. Dr. Eileen, are you back?
Sorry, I got disconnected. So again,
Yeah.
that's that challenge.
So the problem that you mentioned actually happened now. Okay, so please continue. We have some questions, some more questions for you.
Well, the RH. Sorry, for a while. Can you turn this off? I'll just. Sir, can you hear me?
Yes, we hear you now, Doc.
The RHU has already also a great role in disseminating the information to the other sectors or to the community with regards to the telemedicine. So we have to work hand in hand with the Department of Health. And also we as physicians, whether government or private, should also educate our patients with regards to the telemedicine. We need to adapt to the changing times, especially now that it's pandemic where people are actually reluctant to go outside. They're actually afraid of going to the hospitals and clinics. But, well, as you can see, they're not afraid going to the malls. So I think DOH and RHU has a very big role to play here.
Okay. Please stay on, Dr. Eileen. We still have questions for you. One coming from our colleague, Hufsa. If I'm right, she was one of the presenters during the first telemedicine webinar that we had. How are you, Hufsa? So her question is this. I would love to hear more about the effectiveness of social media for the promotion of telemedicine. Did you see a correlation in the number of consultations and the number of social media posts?
Well, if we relate it to what we have here with Consulta, I think it helps a lot, especially that I mentioned earlier that we are the social media capital of the world, and we spend a lot of time online. So it has a great effect on the consumers, to everyone, especially the millennials. So propagating telemedicine, marketing telemedicine through social media greatly affects the using telemedicine as a way of consulting their healthcare issues. Yes.
Okay. Thank you very much, and I hope that answers your question, Hufsa. We also have another question for you, Doctora, from from Tejas Bat. What are some of the ways that have worked for you to drive the utilization of telemedicine uh, related to insurance, especially when it is bundled with insurance for low-income customers? Doctora, do you already experienced this one? So, Kailin?
Sorry, come again, sir.
Yeah, I'll repeat the question. What are some of the ways that have worked for you to drive utilization of telemedicine, especially when it is bundled with insurance for the low-income customers? So the telemedicine actually is bundled with an insurance product. Doc?
Well, we've used social media marketing to encourage our members to use the telemedicine application. Actually, during the pandemic, we have used more on social media marketing. Actually, that is one of the ways to reach to a greater market, to reach our members. So for those who are not tech savvy, who are not into social media, so we extend our reach through their own cooperatives. So we ask their cooperatives to spread the news about this new telemedicine application that we are developing. So both of which, so social media and with the help of the other cooperatives.
So with the cooperatives, do you mean that with the cooperatives, they were able to bundle telemedicine services with insurance products that they offer? Have you experienced such?
Yes, it will now be included as part of our insurance, of our HMO.
Okay, so that will already be a part
Yes,
of
sir.
the HMO. Okay, I hope that answers your question, Tejas Bat. It will
Hi,
be,
Ronnie.
yeah.
If I may, I would also like to add to this question.
Yeah,
What
please,
we've
Assis.
seen also in the project,
Yeah.
especially working with along with BIMA, is that it's what works really well is in the onboarding processes to make clear to customers which services they can use and how they can use them. And we've seen that that's the best way of how to make customers aware of how to use these services. So the insurance, especially the telemedicine, which is a service that they can use continuously, and a way that they could keep the insurance for a longer time. And besides the onboarding, because that will be only at the beginning of getting the insurance, also sending continuous messages. I mean, in our case, in the project that we're implementing in Ghana, it was to send messages about on the number that they could call. But if it's more an app, in-app, so it's how to use it, or perhaps to send a link, but to send continuously how they could use it and to make it easy for them to have an access to the telemedicine. Yeah, it's the way that we found that it's the best to drive utilization of the service.
Okay, thank you very much for your additional information, Assis. So if I might just add to the question, given that in the Philippines it was the sideliners which was recommended to be, to be the most low-lying fruit, was it the same experience also in Ghana for that one?
So for Ghana, we have different personas, and in this case, it was the people who were mostly using the service, or like were most attentive about the telemedicine. It's where it worked the best. Did I answer your question? Sorry.
Okay, yeah. So you have a different profile for Ghana. Okay.
Exactly. So for each country, we had different profiles, as the context could be different, as well as the journey on how
Yeah.
they use the service and the context.
Yeah, which makes understanding more their motivations really important. Okay.
Exactly.
Right? Yes.
Exactly.
Okay. Okay. Thank you very much. Yeah, Dante, I can hear you.
Yes, Ronnie, just kind of rejoinder to what Doc Island has already mentioned, and also to the question about product bundling. In CHMF, Doc Island mentioned in the beginning of her slides, there are more than 54,000 members of the CHMF. So each of these 54,000, they have the so-called health package, health plan. So the telemedicine service that is already there in CHMF, this is not a standalone service. So this is integrated to the package that each of the 54,000 members that, on their health plan, like inpatient benefit, and there are other health benefits they're being a plan holder. So the telemedicine is an added service. It's actually a free integrated service in the existing health plan, and therefore there is bundling there. If just to directly address the question. However, also we'd like to emphasize this, that even if it is already free, we still have we're still exerting so much effort in terms of awareness raising, of advocacy, so that they will sign up to this additional service that the CHMF and One Co-op Health is providing to the members. Thanks, Ronnie.
Okay, thank you very much for that information, Dante. I'm sure that will be very helpful. And I think related to that, we have a question from Mr. Jonathan Batangan. Hi, sir. It's nice to have you here. And again, it's for Doc Eileen. What are your plans? I guess this one is for CHMF. What are your plans to drive scale given the market segment you intend to tap for telemed?
Hello?
Hello, Doc.
Yes. So we plan, of course, to strengthen our marketing efforts in all of our member cooperatives. So telemed will be, as mentioned by Sir Dante, is an added benefit. It's actually part of like a social responsibility of us as a federation. So being that as an added bonus, I think that would entice more members of other cooperatives to join our HMO and be part of the Cooperative Health Management Federation, or One Co-op Health. So we will improve more on the marketing side, and we will also have them informed regarding the benefits of having this telemedicine services aside from our usual health packages. So that actually differentiate them from other HMOs. So that's it.
Hello. Doc, Dr. Eileen?
Yes,
Are you
sir.
still there? Okay? Is that what? Is that it? Are you finished already?
Yes, sir.
Okay, so basically it's enhanced marketing, and I'm pretty sure that social media will play a very strong role given the pandemic.
Yes,
Okay.
sir. We will take advantage of what social media can offer for with this kind of marketing. I think that is what most of the businesses all over the country, if not all over the world, is using right now. So we need to intensify social media marketing.
Okay, thank you very much. Okay, so two more questions here. I think we have time for this one. Okay, is from Yoraldine Gregorio. Okay, the strengths and weaknesses of telemedicine, and if I may add already the other question from the Badevco Lori San Juan. Is telemedicine available in a video conferencing setup? So the first question, Dr. Eileen, is the strengths and weaknesses of telemedicine, and is telemedicine available in video conferencing setup? The second question.
Yes. Okay. For the strengths and weaknesses of telemedicine, I partly mentioned it earlier. So, well-being, providing health services remotely, so it will provide convenience. Okay, so you can have consults at the comfort of your own home by just using your tablets, your cell phones, your laptop, or even with the ones that we're developing, you can access also through your landline. You can also access through your landline. So there's convenience. Another is comfort. So again, you can have it at your own, in your home, in the comfort of your home. There will be less time off from work, okay? And of course, since you're not going to the hospitals and clinics, there'll be less exposure. We don't want to increase our exposure to the dreaded COVID-19 and other diseases you find in the hospital. So telemedicine will provide a very safe consultation setup. Weaknesses. One of the weaknesses, as I see, is that you cannot fully do the assessment. For us doctors, aside from history taking, which we can do during a teleconsultation, we need to do proper physical examination. Here in the country, we don't have yet the gadgets wherein we can hear the heartbeat or the lung sounds. So that in itself is already a limitation. You cannot do a proper physical examination. But as I mentioned earlier, you would know as a doctor if this patient will require a face-to-face consultation. I mentioned earlier an example with regards to a surgical case. You cannot really do a proper physical examination. For instance, an appendicitis, for instance. It has a classic progression of appendicitis. However, not all. There are non-classical, but its diagnosis is not mainly through your ultrasound or your CT scan. In our country, of course, we're a third world country, we rely on physical examination. So we need to do the physical exam to arrive at the diagnosis. Sometimes we don't need ancillary procedures or laboratories to diagnose a disease. So that's one. Another is if the patient, and one of the weakness is when you are doing a consultation, let's say for a younger patient, for a kid, for a month-old baby. It was advised during a seminar that I had with Harvard, is that they advised that 2 years old and below should be seen on a face-to-face basis. Because a child is not a little adult. So you need to proper lighting, you need to palpate, you need to auscultate. That's another weakness. And also internet connectivity. In the Philippines, we have slow internet connection and expensive at that. As I mentioned everything kanina, a while ago with regards to the reasons behind slow internet connection. Because that will make the time, the consultation may be lengthy because of that. And also the time. For a teleconsultation, usually it takes more, in my own experience as a doctor, it takes more time for me to do a teleconsultation than a face-to-face checkup. Why? Because I need to ensure that there is proper lighting, that the patient can hear me properly. Then I have to ask them and to demonstrate what to do. For example, okay, you have to palpate the abdomen. Press it right here. Is it painful? While in the clinic, I can do it myself and quite fast. So I think that's some of the weaknesses of telemedicine. And if it's available in video conferencing, yes, it will be available for video. Thank you.
Okay, thank you very much for that one. Now I'd like to call on the chairperson of CHMF, who has, I think, a question or additional inputs. Retired Major General Llanto. Good afternoon, sir. Please.
Sir, you're muted.
You're muted, sir.
Okay, sorry. Yeah, this is to add up to how we would like to scale up telemedicine and pushing with our own insurance offerings, co-op health insurance offerings. It will be very easy to bundle it with policies or with the contracts that we have with our current and future members, but it is still a long way ahead to really expect adoption or people embracing telemedicine. So one of the tasks that we will implement, and my primary cooperative will be facilitating the first co-op to implement this, is by demonstration. So like in our co-op, ACDI will be extending this healthcare program to our members, and that's one way of endearing ourselves to our members. And telemedicine will be used, and we will be assigning doctors. Actually, what we will do is we will give the contract to Co-op Health, to CHMF, so that we will have our healthcare specialists at half a day or 1 day at a time. And telemedicine will be one of the things, one of the features of our healthcare program. So this way we can demonstrate and slowly point out to our members that you don't need, especially during this pandemic, which we feel could extend up to middle of next year. You don't have to go, come over and say the doctor for ordinary consultation. So this will be one way of demonstrating the effectiveness of telemedicine, even if you are not, even if you are in a far-flung place, but have connectivity. So I think demonstrating this, and then if we have concrete implementation of telemedicine bundled with our packages, that will more or less spur, and then using social media to emphasize this and to highlight the importance of telemedicine in implementing healthcare programs for cooperatives. I think that's also one way of expanding and scaling up telemedicine adoption. Thank you.
Thank you very much, General Llanto. Now, before we go to the evaluation, I'd just like to ask a question, and it is directed to Zam and Asis. Either of you could answer this question. In your in your presentation, actually, in your study, one thing that caught my attention was this particular term. I think it's called humanizing technology, okay, which I think means putting some personal touch still while using technology to service or to access mobile insurance clients. Okay, so if I may ask, what are the possible ways by which you could still personalize or humanize technology, especially given the profile here in the Philippines? We know that they would still want to have the human touch, I mean the personal touch. So what are some possible ways by which you could do this?
I'll answer from Curiosity Group. So from in the Philippines, we've noticed that since Facebook is one of the most frequent touch points when they want to ask an organization, they look for Facebook on Messenger. They look for that organization on Messenger sometimes and directly ask questions. So one way to do that is some individuals now really try to create recreate human conversations, even when the Facebook Messenger app to recreate human conversations or dialogues through the what do you call it? robotics of the Facebook Messenger app. So there are ways in which you can do that if the organization has the capacity to do that, no? So whenever you ask questions on the messenger app, sometimes they ask you what is your concern. There are organizations that tend to be friendlier in their approach when creating that script. So that's one way of humanizing it, creating more human script on the messenger app when customers want to reach out to you. But an alternative way, which we saw from the interviews, is they actually appreciate when they are being onboarded or when there are policies in their changes in their policies for actual agents to actually talk to them. So you can digitize other processes, parts of the processes, but still it's important for them to actually hear someone from the other end and to maybe raise questions that they want to escalate. So that's one way of complementing digital with a human touch. So that's one of the things that we see from. Oh, and to add, if you in creation of apps, it can also be important to make it feel like it's friendly to the users. It uses language that your consumers use. You have that they can relate to it. So if we're reaching lower income segments, then options to change the language to something more familiar with for them would be one way to humanize the digital.
Okay, thank you very much, Azam. I think those are very important points. Okay, so it's like having a more friendly chatbot, and yeah, still hearing human voice. Well, actually, could be still be very appealing to the consumer. And yeah, of course, using a language that they're familiar with is very helpful. Okay. So with that, we end our open forum, but don't leave yet because we still have an evaluation. Shine, could you move to the next slide, please? Okay, Shine will share, you'll be sharing, Shine, the link to the, yes, Shine, just share the link to our polling survey. And yeah, please go to the link that we gave so that we could start with the survey. It's actually designed to get the feedback from this webinar and possibly ways on how to improve future offerings. So yeah. Okay, I hope that you have already accessed the link. Okay, so our first question is, were you able to understand basically how attitudes, behaviors, and motivations affect the design of mobile-based insurance products and health services, actually? So we're getting yes. So there's one maybe. Actually, it's raining very hard here. Maybe some are having difficulties accessing it, but yes, it's coming up. We have 6 and 1 for maybe. Okay, still going up. And okay. So basically, from the results that we're seeing or we're getting, yeah, thank you very much. You were able to get a good understanding of what the webinar actually wanted to impart, particularly on the attitudes, behaviors, and motivations. Okay, so we move to the next one. Second question is the relevance of the informations and insights provided in the webinar to you. Okay. You have 4 choices: very relevant, relevant, not so relevant, and no relevance. So please. Okay, it's a race between very relevant and not so and relevant. Okay, relevant seems to be the answer of the majority. And I think that's it. Thank you very much. So it's very relevant and relevant to the second question. Third question, Shine, please. This is multiple choice. Actually, you could choose from the 8 answers that we have given. Of the presented solutions to acquire and retain low-income customers for mobile-based insurance products, which do you think are the 4 most important? So you have 8 choices. You could choose 4. Which you think are the most important right now, given our situation? So yeah, please, as I mentioned, please choose 4. Okay. So right now, intensive customer education campaigns and product bundling are the top 2 answers, followed by uh, combining digitization with personal approaches and customized products. That's so far from 10 people. Okay, so it's still the same, basically. Well, surprisingly, building institutional partnerships does not have any, but yeah, okay, there's one. Thank you for that. Okay, so from 12 respondents, we have, yeah, the top choice was the intensive customer education campaign, followed equally by customized products and product bundling, and combining digitization with personal approaches. Okay, thank you. And I think we still have one more. Please bear with us. In the area of telemedicine, what further measures would you suggest to address the current challenges that it faces? You could just write your answer here. I mean, it's open answers. And you could write as many as you can if you want. Okay. We have our first answer. Congratulations. Linking the initiatives with DOH RHUs in promoting telemedicine and having a rewards incentive system. Okay, we have an intensify the campaign through social media. It is a free platform. Okay, so it's basically still part of education. Work hand in hand with small cooperatives to reach out to the low income sector. That's very true. So this will involve building up partnerships. Okay. Actually, from the chat box, I could see intensive customer education campaign and promotional schemes and use of barangay LGU facilities. I think some are having difficulties to access, but thank you very much for providing these answers. Okay, so that's it. Involvement of local community groups. Create key messages of different personas of customers and communicate this across insurance stakeholders. Very true. You have different personas as shown in the presentation, and each of them, of course, will require a specific message to convince them. So, okay. I think that will do for, you could continue answering actually. Thank you very much for your answers. But I think this would be sufficient for our purpose. Okay, so yes. Thank you very much for answering our evaluation. Okay, Shine, what's the next slide, Shine? Well, actually, at this point, we already reached the end of the webinar. So, well, first of all, I'd like to thank everybody. Well, on behalf of my colleagues at RFPI, I'd like to thank everybody for taking their time to participate in this webinar. As I mentioned, this is the first of two webinars in this webinar series. Okay, and of course, we'd like to thank our presenters, Asis, Zam, and Doc Eileen for sharing their time and their experience. Again, thank you very much, ladies. We hope that we could have you again in some future webinar. Okay. And at this point also, allow us to promote our second webinar under this series. Just waiting for the slide to show. But as mentioned already earlier by Volker during his opening remarks, we do have the Indonesian version of the study. And this will be on September 7, same time, 3 p.m. via the same platform, our MS Teams platform. We'll be sending further notifications on this, and we hope you could attend also this webinar. Okay. So with that, we formally come to an end. Again, I thank everybody. And yeah, continue to stay safe, and we hope to have you again in our future Tuesdays with MEFIN webinars. Thank you very much.
Thank you, everyone. Bye-bye.
Thank you again to the speakers.
Thank you, everyone.
Thank you.
Thank you,
Stay
everyone.
safe. Bye-bye.
Thanks.